Hi everyone. So in this video, I just want to talk about the upcoming eclipse coming up November 30, 2020. Um, and I want to talk about the North Nodes, which are passing through Gemini and Sagittarius, and how that can help us understand what's going on in the world right now, what are we seeing, what can we expect from this eclipse, and just my thoughts on everything that's going on in the sky right now. So I wanted to start with just pointing out here that the North Node is in Gemini, and that would put the South Node in Sagittarius here. So just to talk a little bit about the North Node, South Node dynamic, what that has to do with is, now the nodes move through about every 1.5 years. They'll move through different signs, and they're always going to be opposite each other. These are mathematical points that indicate where the eclipses happen, which is why during a lunar eclipse, the moon is right over the south node. And what the points, they move through the sky backwards, and what they indicate is kind of an overall indication of, if you were to take the human collective mind in a certain direction, the north node being what we would be moving towards, and the south node being what we're moving away from. And the interesting part about these mathematical points is, for example, that the north node, you would be moving towards it. In other words, these are karmic points that the soul wants to move towards. The north node indicates the area that the soul wants to experience. And at the same time, things that may cause trepidation or fear, for example, in a personal chart. This is how you would interpret it in your personal natal chart. And the south node being something that you've karmically have experienced already. So you would experience or move towards these things out of comfort, out of safety, something you're familiar with. And in terms of the evolution of our consciousness, this is something that you would want to move away from, not necessarily all the time, but that this is a foundation that you've already experienced, that this is territory that you've already conquered, this is thing you've already know how to do, and that you should use the south node as a springboard for moving into north node experiences. And that, in a personal chart, it's by moving through, using the south node and moving into the new experiences of the north node. So looking at it globally here for the collective, human chart, what this indicates, right now we're in a period where the north node is in Gemini and the south node is in Sagittarius. So every sign has a positive and negative qualities. And, generally, in terms of positive and negative qualities within a sign, as you move to the extremes, they're going to get to be negative. If you stay in moderation within any sign, you're going to be expressing and tapping into the positive qualities. So for the sake of interpreting the north nodes, I'm going to say the south node, because it's something where we find our safety, but it's also at the same time what we want to be letting go of, because the south node represents elimination, represents experiences we've already had. It represents what we've already learned from, and what we really need to move towards is the north node in Gemini. So just to talk a little bit how I see that happening. So the south node in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the sign of, first of all, this entire axis. These axes across the chart have things to do with each other, where they're opposites, but they also work together. So you have to really look at them as pairs. So the Sagittarius and the Gemini pair, it's like a gradient, like a scale of opposites, but they also both have to do with the mind and the qualities of the mind. Where Sagittarius can be seen as the higher mind. It has a numerological value of 9, and Gemini can be seen as a lower mind and has the numerological value of 3. And so what you're talking about here is the higher mind, Sagittarius, having to do with things that are more lofty, things that are higher, for example, higher education, college, university, academia, the entire academic world. You're talking about abstract concepts, philosophy. In a classical sense, you're talking about just religion, just the specific religions. If you're not religious, you're talking about any ideology. That's really what it comes down to, is ideology. In other words, things that come top down, right? From some inspired source down to the people. So you're up here, whereas the Gemini mind is down here. Okay, and we'll talk about that. But Sagittarius has to do with learning from a guru, learning from an authority. It is the priest class, the professors, the experts. It has to do also, aside from education and higher education, it has to do with the law and the lawmakers. And, it has to do with following. Some of the negative sides of Sagittarius have to do with fundamentalism and following the law for the sake of following the law to the letter. It has to do with belief systems in general. Whatever your belief systems are can be indicated through the Sagittarius principle. So knowing that, and this is the South Node, then we have to consider, especially on Monday during this eclipse, which is highlighting the placement of the nodes, the ability to release, because Ketu is release and letting go, the ability to release and let go any deeply held beliefs, the ability to let go of a dependence on figures of authority, particularly figures in academic institutions, academia, education, unfortunately, science journals, anything that has to do with faith in someone else telling you something is going to be undermined during this transit. And the purpose of it, the evolutionary purpose of this, is to really shake up what we're believing in, because I think it's because, in my opinion, because of this dynamic of it coming top down. And so the things that we've learned, the things that we have faith in, because this is also faith, it's going to shake up our faith. It's going to shake up our faith in institutions. It's going to shake up our faith in the church. It's going to shake up our faith in religion. It's going to shake up our faith in education, what we've been taught. It's going to shake up our faith it's going to shake up our belief systems. All of this can be seen with Ketu, which is about letting go. The other thing I'll say about Ketu, which is what I'm calling this, which is what's called the South Node, is that it's also about achieving spirituality or achieving a spiritual experience. Whereas the opposite node, the North Node, is about the soul moving into a material experience. Ketu is about the soul withdrawing from the material world in order to experience its spiritual nature. So it's going to be a kind of like a paradoxical moment where undermining what we have held as our faith and our belief in whatever system this is going to be really undermined. And, because it's this K2 point is about releasing and letting go. What happens when we let go of the things we had faith in and we let go of the things we had a belief in? What's left? The way K2 operates is you've had an experience, you as the soul have had an experience, you've become attached to something, you fully lived it, maybe you believed that you were it, and now it's time to let it go. It's the eliminator. It's the visual symbol here you can see is, somebody with a headless person, because the Rahu is the head and this is the body. So it's a dragon that has, here's the dragon's head, here's the dragon's body. So here is where you embrace the experience, and here's where you eliminate it. So you've lived this experience, you are now done with it, and you've reached a level of completion and you're letting it go. And so what's left? What's left when you don't identify with this Sagittarius, when you don't identify with this anymore? And it's a little bit frightening, and it's a little bit, but what happens is then you realize that you are not that experience. You are not your beliefs. You are not your faith. You are not the things you've been taught. You're something else, right? You're like the essence behind that. And so that's what K2 will teach you in any of these signs, really going all the way around, how to let go of any of these things so that you become aware that you're not any of the things that make up your experience. You're not the material things, you're not the memories, you're not the ideas, you're not the identity of it, being a mother, father, daughter, whatever. You're not the things you own, your car, your house, your bank account. You're not your ideas, you're not your education, you're not your degrees, you're not your positions in society. You're not any of those things. That your true nature transcends all of that, and it's just about the pure ground of being. It's just about the ability, the pure essence of consciousness, of just being able to perceive that you are. And that's K2's lesson all the time. So here in Sagittarius, especially kind of in the middle, we're at 19 degrees. If you can think of each sign kind of like this, around 19, it's almost right at the midpoint. Really the essence of Sagittarius. It also has to do with, I also see more lockdowns and people staying at home, really, because Sagittarius has to do with adventure and travel and, connecting with other people from faraway international countries and from, cultures that are foreign to you, and, different languages, learning languages, and, this kind of like adventuring spirit, which is some of the positive qualities of Sagittarius. But so we're also going to experience a diminishing and a lessening of that as well during this time period, and particularly for this eclipse. And then in Gemini, so now in Gemini, what's the North Node? The North Node is the head of the dragon. Now this is a head with no body, so it's considered the insatiable part, the part of where the soul wants to have experiences and more and more and more. Now, this part of the North Node, also known as Rahu, is in Gemini. So what is the nature of Gemini that we can think, what are we being asked to move into in comparison to the Sagittarius energy? So we're being asked to move into more Gemini things, which is, if this is top down, Gemini is really the bottom up approach, because as the lower mind, it has to do with the more mundane matters. It has to do with the more day-to-day affairs, especially as it relates to communicating with our immediate circle of friends, with our neighbors, with the people around us, with whether it's family or neighbors or friends, who's that we interact with in a day-to-day basis. So it has to do with how do we interact, how are we engaging and really embracing what's immediately around us. It's the concrete points, rather than having an abstract idea and trying to apply it as a prescription into our practical life based on an ideology up here. It's actually the other way. We're asked to be curious, because Gemini is really about curiosity. It's part of the mind that learns practical skills, that plays games, that like actual just games like chess or checkers or something. It's curious, it is inquisitive, it wants to know the details, wants to know, so these are different points, details, that then can build upward into some larger principle towards Sagittarius. But down here in this area where Gemini is, it's about gathering information. It's about gathering information and being curious and being communicative with the people that are, you would say, in your sphere, on your level, that you're interacting with on a day-to-day basis, whoever these people may be. Maybe they're your coworkers, maybe it's a family, maybe it's your children, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your neighbors. You interact with them on a day-to-day basis. How are you engaging with them? And are you engaging with them fully? And really being curious about them, really being interested and curious with a fresh perspective, without the heaviness of an ideology, without the heaviness of a preconceived notion, without the weight of a belief bearing down. So being able to block that already what you believe is the right thing. This is the thing about Sagittarius, is like, oh, what I believe is right and what you believe is clearly wrong, and let me tell you how it is, what I believe, and how what I believe is what you should believe. So Gemini doesn't have that. Gemini wants to know what's the details on the ground. This is on the ground reporting, what's actually happening. It represents the hands, and the arms. So it's like, what are you, practical skills, what are you actually doing with your hands? What are the actions that you're actually taking? Instead of being in an ivory tower up here, dealing with these lofty ideas of theory and ideology, how is it actually practically being applied in your community in a real world way? That's what this eclipse, this entire nodal transit, and especially I believe this eclipse, is really asking from us, is can we let go of our belief systems and where we think we're right and where we think we have the answer, and can we instead actually just look with curiosity into what people are experiencing around us? What are they saying? What are people actually saying? Because this is, Gemini is multiplicity. See, it's a dual sign. So it's not going to be one whole coherent idea. It's going to be like a lot of different little points of information, that may or may not totally make a cohesive whole. And for Gemini, that's okay. For Gemini, it's like, yeah, some points indicate one way, other points other points of information indicate one thing. Some points of information will indicate another. And, what are people actually saying? Because Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and Mercury rules communication. What are people saying? What are people writing? What are people expressing? What's their on-the-ground experience of life right now? And what's yours? What are you saying? Are you spouting your beliefs right now and your ideology? Or are you communicating your actual lived experience? And Mercury right now is in Scorpio at 29, well, it will be on this eclipse at 29 degrees Scorpio, which Scorpio is about digging deep and doing research or looking underneath the surface, looking beyond the superficial. So it's really interesting because Gemini does get a reputation for being very superficial, but more, I feel like more than it being necessarily superficial, it's just trying to cover a broad area all at once. So it's trying to take into account a lot of different points of information all at once. And now that it's at 29 degrees, which is a very important critical degree, it's the last degree, a master's degree in Scorpio, it's saying really all of this is really leading to something that is happening underneath the surface. So in your personal relationships, you want to really pay attention to what are all the, don't be afraid of contradicting points of information. That's really what it comes down to, is don't be afraid of being open and curious about contradicting points of information, because that is just the Gemini way. It's going to happen. And if you can just release your preconceived beliefs or ideas about a situation, then by being aware of all these multiplicity of points of information, you'll actually have a very deep understanding of what's really going on. That will emerge because Scorpio is the depth, is the subconscious, the unconscious, the deeper part. It goes really deep. As well, it's very transformative. So all of these, being able to become aware of all of these variety of opinions and experiences, excuse me, not opinions. See, that's this. Becoming aware of what all of these people are experiencing, or really listening, or really being curious about what's going on around you in your immediate environment, then will give you a deeper understanding of motivation. What's the motivation of people? Because if you're always applying your preconceived notions, you're not going to be able to truly understand other people. And as well, this nodal dynamic as asking of us to apply solutions that have practical value. Put our time and energy into projects that have practical value, because Gemini is about practical value. It's about efficiency. It's about, moving around quickly, transportation, getting things from here to there, being able to organize things in a practical way. So try and see how you can shift your energy this week and in this coming few months. I think we'll be in these nodes through 2021 as well. Most of 2021. How can you put your energies into really creating practical solutions that can improve the day-to-day experience, including, communication, or doing something, learning a new skill. Actually, this is pretty good. Learning a new skill, in other words, in terms of education, Sagittarius is higher education. So, you're talking about, you being in a university or being in a academic setting, versus Gemini has to do with the hands and the arms. So learning something practical, it doesn't have to be necessarily tangible, but just learning practical skills, right? This is the associate's degree. This is the weekend workshop. This is the, hands-on training, rather than, getting a PhD or something. So think about how you can put your energy into this area of the chart.